name's Grace Tompkins, and I serve on the Friends of the Library Board, along with 21 other folks who really devote their time and energy to making this a wonderful library. And we've had some Lunch and Learn series, and they were very successful. So last spring, I guess maybe it was after a Lunch and Learn, we decided we have some money that was donated in memory of Walter Durham. We should have an evening lecture series. So committee has been working on this for a number of months, and we've had so much fun learning a lot about Walter Durham that we didn't know, but you can read about him in your program. And I want to thank Kay Scott and John Angel for putting together this great program. Please take it with you, but keep it in a safe place, because if you're coming back next Tuesday, we want you to bring your program, and you'll know who is speaking next Tuesday, and then the 17th and the 24th. Would you believe that this is the only night, Tuesday, that this room is available in this library? This is a very, very busy place. And so we got on the calendar real quick when we started planning the Walter Durham Lecture Series. And tonight we're going to start off with the Cragfont presentation. And the two presenters are just dynamic folks. Mechelle Bass happens to be a direct descendant of the Winchesters. And she's in costume. Can't get better than that. And then we're going to hear some stories from the security guy who has been looking out for Cragfont for 18 years, David Wyllie. So I just hope you'll remember to take your programs with you and bring them back next week. And by all means, tell a neighbor, a friend, a coworker about this, because we can seat 102 people. And we were expecting a few more tonight. And maybe this series will, by word of mouth, grow, and we'll have some more of you folks next week. We have great little snacks and refreshments, and so without further ado, I want to start out and introduce Mechelle Bass.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I don't know what she means by costume. I took time out from my usual daily rug beating and butter churning to be here tonight. Well, I appreciate everybody coming. I really would like to thank the Friends of the Library and the library itself for affording us this room for this lecture series. As you said, my name is Mechelle. I serve on the board for Historic Cragfont. But I'm not alone. There are some other board members in here, and I'm going to pick on y'all a little bit and have you stand up. I want everybody to see you. If you have any questions tonight after the program, you can come on, Carlene. Carlene Fox is our president, and Scott and Rebecca Bowman. Brockman, sorry, I know Rebecca Bowman. And Linda Milliken, we're all here tonight. So feel free to hit us up for anything you need to know after this is over. Thank you. I'm not a Sumner County resident. I do live in Wilson County. I have all my life, but besides supporting Cragfont, I'm also a descendant of James and Susan Winchester. They were my 4th great-grandparents on my mother's side. So I'm happy to be here and share some of their stories with you. My assignment tonight was to come here and tell you some about James Winchester, the builder of Cragfont. But when I got ready to do my presentation, it occurred to me I can't really tell you about him without sharing some of his ancestry stories and maybe shed a little light on perhaps what drove him to do some of the things that he was able to accomplish. His grandparents, James and Jane Patterson Winchester, lived in the Westminster section of London. They were born about 1670 or so. This James, was a whitesmith, or as today we call it, a locksmith. Locks at that time were complicated little metal machines that had to be all hand fabricated. If you've ever been in any old houses and you've seen those big old locks about like this, about that thick, all those are hand fabricated. He probably made a pretty good living at that. His eldest son, William, was born in 1711 and would have apprenticed under his father, learning that trade as was custom at the time. But as William approached manhood, he started getting other ideas. He decided to come to the American colonies. Now, the history books that we all grew up with in school, in my opinion, would have you believe that every person that came across the Atlantic Ocean to this country came for freedom of religion. Well, that's just not true. Now, certainly, that was one of the important reasons people came, but there were other reasons. It was called the Great Migration. And it's because people came in droves to be in a new country, something exciting, something unknown. The reasons to immigrate varied person to person. Certainly freedom of religion was one of them. In those days, in all of Europe, you were expected to adopt the religion of the current monarch. Now, you had choices. Your choice was either stand your ground and believe in what you wanted to believe in and probably be persecuted. You could either be imprisoned, tortured, put to death, or at the very least, banished. There were times when some country would do a banishment of everybody of a certain faith, and then they'd all move over to the neighboring country. Well, then that monarch would change, and then they'd all move back, or they'd move somewhere else. So, you know, it changed all the time. So a lot of people either went with the religion of the weak, or they left. Another reason for immigration was the chance to own land. We take that for granted now. Any of us can go to a bank and get a loan and buy anything we want to buy. The bank is more than happy to loan you money, no matter how much you don't need. But in England, that was different. They operated for hundreds of years under a class system. And in America, we often talk about lower, middle, and upper classes, which we certainly have. But there is nothing, law-wise, we might say, that would keep or could keep anybody that was born, say, on the wrong side of the tracks from growing up and becoming a CEO of a major company, or to own the biggest farm in Iowa, or, you know, some acreage in Florida, or just whatever. Now, granted, that person that wanted to be the CEO is going to face some challenges. There's no doubt about that. But it could be done. It can be done. The person just has to have enough gumption. But in the 1700s England, it could not be done. It didn't matter how much gumption you had. If you were not born somebody, you could never become somebody. And even if you were somebody, unless you were the eldest son of an earl or a duke or a knight, for example, you could still never have anything. That's why, and the reason why is because rights of inheritance only fell to the eldest son. So that's why if you look in the colonial record of people that came from England, France, wherever, and came over here, you'll find second, third, and fourth sons of some pretty powerful people in Europe. But the reason they came is because if they stayed at home, unless that elder brother died, they're not gonna get anything. Now, they could probably live in the castle for a while, you know, maybe rent-free or something like that, but they would never own anything themselves. So, if they had any aspirations of owning property, they had to come here. William Winchester was the eldest son, but he may have had another big reason to come. As I've said, he lived in the Westminster section of London. And even though that was considered the cultural center of the world at the time, it was a nasty place to be. Nasty. It was overcrowded, there was no real sewer sanitation, and it was disease-ridden. Here's an example of how overcrowded it was. Probably everybody in this room, at some time or another, has driven through, out of curiosity, the Fairview subdivision down here, right? You know you have. Everybody's done it. Okay, it's a big place. It covers about 500 acres. Beautiful place along the edge of the water. Now, use your mind's eye for a minute. Can you imagine taking the entire population of Sumner County today and moving them all into Fairview Plantation? Then you have to build 2- and 3-story ramshackle buildings, which probably won't meet their code, to house them all. Now that's how crowded London was at that time. Not understanding how disease worked and germ spread at that time, there was always a plague, TB, cholera, you name it. If there was a deadly disease, it swept through London all the time. That sounds like a good reason to leave to me. And indeed, that may have been one of the reasons William left England and came to America. We'll never know for certain, but what we do know is that in 1729, at the age of 18, he boarded a ship to endure a 3-month journey across the Atlantic Ocean to land in the Maryland colonies as an indentured servant. We can imagine he wrote a letter home to his parents to let them know that he safely arrived, but it would have been his last correspondence with them. James and Jane, that's hard to say, Winchester's dates of death are both 1730. That was just months after he left home. It's very likely they both died of some disease that ran rampant through London at that time. As an indentured servant, William was trained and worked as a surveyor. At the end of his service, which would have been at least 5 years, he began buying and selling land. He soon acquired enough to lay out a town and sell lots. The property was originally called, wait for it, Winchester's Town. Now, wasn't that just a brilliant idea for the name of the town? But in just a few years, mail delivery got confused from time to time between Winchester's Town and Winchester, Virginia. So they decided to change the name of the town to Westminster in honor of where William immigrated from. Apparently at that time there was postal problems also. So now these places are like 100 miles apart. I don't know how that got confused, but they fixed the issue. So William became a large landowner and pillar of the community. He built a home that is still here today. You'll be able to see it when you come up to the table when it's over. This is a picture of it right here. It was originally, well, after it was no longer a residence, it was acquired by the Target Corporation. And they operated as Winchester's Inn bed and breakfast. Then about 15 years ago, excuse me, Target was looking to get out of the bed and breakfast business, and there was a lady in town who was a retiring RN. She always wanted a tea room. So the two ideas merged, and she opened it as Gypsy's Tea Room and Restaurant. and it is a very popular place to go in Westminster. Also, on the property right next to that, used to be his part of his farm, is the Carroll County Agriculture Center. Westminster, Maryland lies 40 miles west of Baltimore and is today a thriving town of about 20,000 citizens. James Winchester, or as we on the board refer to him simply as the General, was born in 1752 in Westminster, Maryland, the third of 10 children for William and his wife Lydia Richards. He grew up witnessing the surrounding woods and farmland be developed into a bustling community and center of commerce. Perhaps seeing what his father was able to accomplish, coming from virtually nothing in just a few short years, maybe that's what inspired him to try to do the same thing in later years. During his formative years, he was educated in the classics and history. He was a real big history buff. Some of that comes out later in things he named people, places, and things. He was also trained as a surveyor. He received training in the local militia so that when the Revolutionary War broke out, and him being the ripe age of 24, ready to fight and do something, he knew what to do. He spent 7 years in the Revolutionary War. He was wounded and held captive for 3.5 years on a prisoner ship in the New York Harbor. Now, talk about crowded, no sewer sanitation, and disease. How anybody lived through that is just amazing. But he finally got released under a prisoner's change. When he returned home, he and his brother George, who also served the entire 7 years during the Revolution, they decided to use their land grants that they were issued as payment for their services in the military to help expand our new country into the wilderness. And guess where that was? Anything west of the Appalachians. So we're sitting in the middle of wilderness right now, or it was then. James and George arrived in this area in 1785. They quickly built a fort and their mill so they could start business. Now, these are just an inkling of the things that James was able to accomplish in a very short period of time. Excuse me. He served as the official surveyor to determine the boundary lines between Davidson and Sumner counties. He was also in charge in surveying the boundary lines between Tennessee and the Cherokee Indian lands. He was appointed to the grand jury, was a commandant of the local militia, inspector of the brigade, Sumner County's first trustee. He was justice of the peace and member of the quarterly court. He was appointed by President George Washington to serve on the Legislative Council of the Southwest Territory. And again, that's here. So it's sort of wild to think about, we're standing here on all this pavement and bricks and concrete. Not that long ago, this was considered the wilderness and then the Southwest Territory. This council was responsible for making a plethora of governmental decisions, from chartering schools to where to build courthouses and jails. He was elected to the Senate of the 1st Tennessee Legislature and was their first speaker. He would have been second in line for a governorship if John Sevier had died or could not fulfill his office. He was appointed Brigadier General of the Miro District, replacing James Robertson. And all these things happened before Tennessee was even officially a state. So he had a busy 10 years. He was also in constant contact with our new government about sending help to repel Indian attacks, which happened quite frequently at the beginning. Ironically, his brother George was one of the last people to be killed by an Indian attack. And from what I understand, it happened, let's see, we're right out there at the end, that way, where North Water and Hartsville Pike intersect. Now, during all this hustle and bustle, he also found time to start a family and to build Cragfont. Now, granted, Susan took care of all the family end of things, and craftsmen were hired, a lot of them out of Maryland, which is where James is from, to come and physically build the place. But still, that's a lot going on when you're doing all this other stuff. He also had to be away a lot. He tended to state affairs all the time, and then he'd have to track Indians to receive property and sometimes people that were taken. He then created and operated most of the businesses in a community called Cairo. Now, the ones of us who grew up around here, you know I'm saying it right. If you ever hear anybody pronounce it Cairo like it should be, you know they're not from here. And at its creation, Cairo was larger than the original footprint of Knoxville. So it was a big area. If you ever get a chance to drive to that area, there's a really large historical marker there that lists every business that was there. It's just amazing what size of town it was. He became partners with Andrew Jackson and John Overton to create the town of Memphis. And indeed his oldest son, Marcus, was its first mayor. His last military service was during the War of 1812. He was appointed Brigadier General. He was captured and held prisoner for a time. He returned home to Cragfont in 1815 and spent the last 10 years of his life attending to his personal business and his family. James Winchester certainly lived an eventful life. To his family and community, he stood for civilization and cultural refinement. Cragfont today is still a very busy place. It serves as a great example of cultural and architectural history. We offer tours 6 days a week, and about 7 months out of the year, we become a wedding venue. Almost every weekend we have a wedding. I brought 2 pictures, the 2 on the end, of weddings held at 2 different times of the year. One in the fall and one definitely in the spring, summer. And as you can see, we have beautiful gardens that serve as a backdrop for any event out there. We are extremely fortunate and happy to have a great team from the Sumner County Master Gardeners. A couple of upcoming events I want to tell you about is this Saturday, April 7th. In coordination with the Sumner County Historic Sites Kickoff, we'll be serving free grilled hamburgers and hot dogs and free tours of the house. Our event is called Hot Dogs on the Hill. So that's from 10 to 4 that day. So if you get a chance, please come out. Then the next weekend, April 14th and 15th, we'll be hosting the 7th Infantry Living History Encampment. Now they came out a couple of years ago, and I'm telling you, that's just such a hoot. They all come out dressed in their period clothing, which is for during the War of 1812. They march around, do their drills with their weapons and their, how they do military, help me out, Scott, how they do their military practices. They bring with them their wives and all their support staff, like the military tent. They have gunsmiths.
Cannon demonstration.
Yes, they have cannon demonstrations. I mean, you think you've gone back in time when you see these people. It's just really neat to watch. That is on Saturday and Sunday morning. Then on June 3rd, which is the first Sunday in June, we have our annual picnic. And it's open to the public, free of charge. We provide the chicken and the drinks. You bring your family and a dish big enough to share with other people, and we all sit at the picnic tables and eat under the shade trees. Okay, in conclusion, I have brought a short video for you to watch. The program Tennessee Crossroads came out and filmed the encampment. They will visually show you better than I can tell you. Then it does start with a little bit about the house, and then it'll go into the encampment. Okay? All right. Excuse me.
It's all right.
can go to numerous places and see real artifacts from the past, and go to other places and experience what life was like in the past. And sometimes, well, you get both. That's what Rob Wiles experienced on a recent trip to Cragfont Mansion in Castellan Springs.
So many historic homes in Tennessee, but the flag is flying today at one of the most historic, Cragfont Mansion, tucked away in Castellan Springs. Lowell Fania, site director here, says this was a marvel of its time.
Cragfont was built back in 1798. It was completed in 1802 by James Winchester. James Winchester was a fighter in the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812. More importantly, he and Andrew Jackson and John Overton were the three men who surveyed and created the city of Memphis. He built the largest home in Tennessee with this one.
Inside, visitors have so many interesting things to see.
They'll see the house completely restored to its original grandeur. Stencil walls, stippled risers on the steps, but it's fully furnished with authentic federal antiques. We have his original hat and epaulets that he wore in the War of 1812. We have his rifle that he used in the Revolutionary War. The land grant signed by President James Monroe, which gave him 300 acres for his service during the Revolution, and also the original commission signed by President James Madison, which made him a brigadier general.
And something that is really rare.
We do have a 1706 dollhouse in here, and although it is not original to the Winchester home, it is 1706. It's actually older than the home, and the figures in it are made of wax and wood, and real human hair for the wigs, and so it's an interesting piece.
So many interesting pieces inside the house. And here, in the fields behind the house, history often comes to life, like it is today, in the form of these reenactors of soldiers from the War of 1812. Steve Abolt commands this group of reenactors, modeled after a real regiment from 1812.
These men were called up, they had very little training, and what the government and the Army realized, they would have to establish more professional standards for these men. And that's what we're out here doing this particular weekend.
From right to left, tell all. Right?
Right, left.
What's that?
Well, raw recruits, you know.
From right to left, tell all. Right!
Left, right, left.
Right!
And while these reenactment soldiers want to look and act the part, nobody takes it too seriously.
Yeah, if you're taller than the guy in front of you, step past him. If you're taller than the guy in front of you. Yeah, just go to the back of the line, dude. There you go.
And before you know it, these reenactors are looking sharp.
Form to the front. March. Ken, just come up. There you go.
Ken, nicely done, buddy. Yeah. 90 degrees, guys. Bill, beautiful. Brad, beautiful. Guys, make it 90-degree turn. 90-degree turn. Speed. Excellent. Excellent.
Just like the real thing, the reenactors camp has more than soldiers in it.
Diagnosis, we got treatment, we got follow-up, we got surgery. Venereal disease.
The camp doctor, Frank Kirtley from Mississippi, prepares. This unit would later face the bloody British at New Orleans, but the more deadly foe is closer to home.
Disease is the biggest problem. Camp sanitation and a group of soldiers coming together in one place at one time.
So while the doctor prepares and the soldiers drill, back at the Cragfont house,
Citizens of Sumner County, we stand at a great precipice, sir, and ladies.
Myers Brown portrays a politician who does what politicians have always done, makes a speech.
There are our New England brethren who even now are contemplating a separate peace with the British.
No.
We will not yield in Tennessee.
During this point in the War of 1812, things weren't going so well for the U.S., so it was important to keep morale up and wait for Andrew Jackson, fresh from victory, to take command of these troops.
3 cheers for General Jackson. Hip hip, huzzah! Hip hip, huzzah! Hip hip, huzzah!
After all that emotion of a political speech, perhaps a walk through the gardens to calm yourself a bit. Maybe even dream of a wedding. Why, this is where many modern-day folks choose to get married. Speaking of modern-day folks, lots of them come out to take a look at the reenactors' encampment, which is part of the point.
What we try to do is create a portal to the past so that the visitor can leave the 21st century behind, step into the back, actually see, smell, because the smell is a big part, especially after you get rained on in wool, to allow the visitor actually to see, in a small way, what America was like 200 years ago.
I think it's an excellent way to convey the history to the public. It's something that you can see, touch, feel. It's a little bit different than reading it in a history book. You can actually experience it a little bit more. I think it's a great way to communicate to adults and to children.
Now that appeals to the child in me. I know you'll find something that appeals to you at the Cragfont Mansion in Castilian Springs.
Now, wasn't that terrific? Yes. There's no way I could have explained all that, especially how to run your tongue out that long with a spoon. That's something you just had to see. Look me a little light here. I think I can do this in the dark anyway. I just wanted to let you know that in case anybody's interested, if you're like me, you never carry cash with you anyway, but we do have some items up here. If anybody'd like to have something, we have cookbooks. We also have, and after you get through listening to David, you may want this one. Long ago in Hauntings and Legends of Cragfont. But you can always come out and visit Cragfont. We always have these things for sale. Like I say, this is the picture of William Winchester's home in Maryland. This is a photograph that one of our members took of Cragfont that I immediately snatched up from him, but I wanted to advertise it for him because it's such a beautiful picture. And the brochures, the blue and the other two on the end are free to take, especially the one about the upcoming encampment. Please take one and tell your friends and neighbors. We'd love to have a lot of people out. All right, thank you.
Hello, my name's David Wyllie. I was with the Highway Patrol for 36 years. I'm retired now, whatever. But anyway, y'all have come to listen to this, and whatever I tell you is true. Whatever you choose to believe will be your affair. Right now, we've got over 30 security cameras all around the plantation, so some of the things that you will see is not just me telling a tale. I have got security cameras to show what I am. I have an opinion about what these things are, and let me tell you something else. You'll watch ghost hunters and different things. There is no such thing as an expert in this field. Did you hear that? There's no such thing. I'm going to tell you why. The Bible says the devil's a murderer and a liar, and the truth is not in him. So you think you're going to get the truth out of these things? You will not. But again, you're listening to my opinion, okay? But anyway, if you'll start the film, and I'll show you that part, and then afterwards, if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer the questions you have. This was done during our Halloween time, and I believe it was at Channel 4 or 5. 5, yeah, okay.
You know, Tennessee was considered the frontier when this house was built.
Beautifully maintained, it's one of the oldest houses in the mid-state. Its past, at times though, has been troubled.
Yeah, maybe the reason why the caretakers believe it has had hundreds of things happen that they cannot explain.
News Channel 5 photojournalist Nathan Sharkey takes us to Castalian Springs, where on top of a lonely hill sits the Cragfont Plantation.
The house, of course, belonged to James Winchester. He built it in 1798. Took that gentleman 4 years to build it.
General Winchester, they suffered so much fires, Indians attack, people being carted off.
The last man scalped in Sumner County was the General's Winchester's brother.
I think it's just spirits that for some reason can't rest and can't go on to the next step.
My wife and I have been here 36 years and as directors.
I work with the Sumner County Master Gardeners to maintain the historical garden.
It has an attraction because of my love of history and my love of antiques.
Our job is to maintain it. The house is owned by the state, and old houses require a lot of maintenance.
But yes, we dealt with several things that we didn't understand, and we didn't understand why.
Came upstairs here in the bedrooms, and there were just hordes of bugs. There were a lot of dead flies, dead wasps, all on the windowsills, all on the floor, on the dressers.
With males, it's a little bit more aggressive. I probably have purchased 10 to 12 pair of glasses because it would hit me and knock them off. I scratch them, I grab them and bend them.
Went into the other room, and we had smoothed all the beds down to make sure the bedspreads looked really nice. And there was the imprint of a body, like somebody had slept in this bed.
It likes to take books out of the secretary upstairs, and I'll find them many times up on the bed with a deep impression as if you're sitting there reading it.
This is the clock, yes. Lo was simply walking upstairs, but this whole door apparently just fell off and clipped the glass on his head.
I walked in the entrance door and I heard what I thought was a bird fluttering upstairs. I never found the bird. As I was coming down the stairs, I felt something hit me right here, and I thought it was a bird. It was not a bird, it was a rope around my neck, and I have the rope. I've had my go-rounds with them.
There is definitely something here.
It's their home. Challenge them? No way. I'm just not going to do it any longer, although I did when I was a little younger.
How is this happening? We don't know. We don't ask.
In some instances, the paranormal occurrences have been physically documented by pictures or video. Now, despite the home's dark side, it is rich in history and available to tours and events such as weddings. You can visit their webpage for more information, cragfont.net.
Can you stop it right there a second? Have y'all ever just looked at somebody and say, you know, he ain't done nothing to me. That guy just rubs me the wrong way, you know? Just don't like that. That's the way they treat Lowell, okay? They've treated him that way ever since then. They just start something with him all the time. You're fixing to see part of that film. Again, I've got 30 security cameras all around there, and when you see this rope go around his neck, there's absolutely nobody else in the house, okay? And again, the last 3 steps that you'll see him battling that rope, he's 75 years old, and it's just dangerous going up and down those steps once let's see him battle this rope that's gone around his neck. Tell you a little bit about that, what happened with that rope. We have a lot of photographers in different groups. We even have movie stars and young people wanting to get involved in the country music. We had a young girl that came out here with her band of people out of Hollywood, and she was going to be a rock music star. And all these people come out there with her or whatever, and they look like something out of a vampire movie. I've never seen such a bunch of interesting looking Hollywood people, okay? Well, Lowell was real nice to these people, you know, and they wanted to play that rock music inside the house, and that's a big no-no, not supposed to do that, but Lowell allowed it to be done. And I thought, that's probably not a good idea, you know? So anyway, I was in my little cabin, and the rock music was so loud, I was listening to it in my cabin, I thought, this isn't going to go over real
well.
And sure enough, after he did that, 1 week later, he goes in, you're fixing to see that, and they done put a rope around his neck, and you see him battling that rope. And so we come back, I said, bad move, boy. Bad move, don't do stuff like that, you know. And then another thing is, and we've got the pipe, we have a lot of trouble out of this pump. This pump goes down to the creek and it circulates water on up to the garden. So it goes down every year. And me and Lowell, we call them boogers. And we say, you know, them boogers messing with the pump and causes us a lot of trouble, okay? So anyway, we was sitting into the information center. I was sitting over there and I said, you know, Lowell, we've been very fortunate this year. We haven't had any trouble with the pump. I said, the boogers ain't messed with the pump. And Lowell says, they know better. He says, I'll give them some of this. And I thought, bad move. I said, don't say that, don't say that. Next day, I'm down there, the pump's done gone down, and I've even had an engineer look at this thing. It's PVC pipe. It's not hooked directly to the pump, it's about the third section down. It was sucked in like a straw. Nobody can figure out how that happened. It was like it had melted. Something couldn't have melted because it was way away from the main part of the pump. So we needed another 10 hours fiddling with that pump, getting it going. But we've had time after time with different things happening there at Cragfont. Anyway, if you'll run the film now, I'll show you some more things that have happened that the security cameras have picked up. What do they need to turn the lights up? Okay. All right. This is Lowell coming down, security camera picking this up, and you'll watch him, they done throw a rope around his neck. Look at him. We've got the rope. And you'll see it really has startled him. He said that he looked up the stairs and it was like the rope was midair up the stairs, but nobody was behind the rope. Next film that you will see is, again, we have doors shut by themselves, furniture moved, and different things. And again, the security cameras are picking it up. Again, nobody is in the house, and you'll watch that door and it'll shut by itself. And these are just a couple of things that I brought with us to the time limit. What we got. It takes that one a little while, but that's a light on to the side, and that's the door when you go up the stairs to the. And you'll see it shuts by itself. And that's another thing. I think also after that I've got...
You know, Tennessee was considered...
Down will be some pictures of where people have a lot of photographers, and they will pick up things. I believe that'd be number 3. There you go. Let me show you that one right there. And I put on hayrides for different groups, sometimes church groups or whatever. That happened to be some of the friends of my wife there. And this fella here, he stayed upstairs in the ballroom. And everybody else had gone back downstairs with me, and had about 15 or 20 people there. And at the hayride site, we were sitting by the fire, and he said, Mr. Wyllie, I believe I got one. And I said, well, let me see. And he just took his cell phone shot over his shoulder, and you could see the image of a woman there that he apparently got. I said, yeah, I said, I believe you did get one. And then go down the next one there, and again, we have this one I think's been around. Look between the little boy. This was a family that stood up in front of the one of our windows there, and again you can see the image of an old woman. Looked like she's peeping out the. Can everybody see that? I'm in some y'all's way here, and you'll see the image there of a woman. And I think that's about all I got. So if you want to, that I brought with me. Now, I'm a Christian, okay? Now, the Lord's not somebody I believe in. He's somebody I know. And Lowell won the lottery, and his wife was very scared of these things. As a matter of fact, at nighttime, many times it would take her in bed, take her panties and pull them down to her legs, This was at the cabin that I lived in. But now, Lowell won the lottery, won the Kentucky lottery. And he didn't want, he'd been a sheriff's deputy and I was a highway patrolman here. This was in early 80s. And we were good friends, but anyway, they wanted to move, they wanted out of there. And so it was offered to me. So I thought, well, you know, the Lord's really my life, and I'll be all right, know about these things, and I'm probably not going to have the trouble that the Lord had. So anyway, I was a highway patrol sergeant in Wilson County. This is the year 2000. So me and the wife, we put our house up for rent. We moved out to the little cabin. Now I want you to know something. It's absolutely beautiful out there if y'all have never seen it. It is beautiful. And I'm in my little cabin and Ann's out there, and it's just like, you know, it's like a vacation area all the time. There's very few places any prettier than what that is. First 2 weeks, slept great. I mean, it was nice. And I don't know that I ever slept any better than what I did those first 2 weeks. I had never slept that good since. Long about the third week, me and Ann laying up in bed, 3 o'clock in the morning. And this woman, and she just a moaning and carrying on in the hall of my little cabin. Now there's a highway patrol car outside my cabin. We carried 357 Magnums at that time. And I'm hearing this woman moaning. I mean, it ain't little loud, it is loud. And I thought, some woman that broke in my house carrying on me, and I thought, I'm going to shoot her hind end off. And I got my gun, and I'm running through there, all through my rooms, you know, looking for some woman to shoot. Door's locked, nothing there. I thought, well, what kind of deal is this? And I had to be over 10-8 or at work in Wilson County at 7 a.m. And needless to say, you don't go back to sleep. If I turn that thing off, you don't go back to sleep after, you know, some woman don't woke you up moaning. So next night, I'm back in bed asleep. 3 o'clock in the morning, she's doing some carrying on again. And I'm up again with my pistol. Nothing. Door locked. Third night does the same thing. Fourth night, laying there asleep in bed, about 3 o'clock in the morning. I got my back to Ann, and hand to something goes down and whops her pillow. She thinks I done whopped her pillow. He turns over and said, "What'd you whop my pillow?" I said, "I ain't whopped your pillow, I've been asleep." Fifth night, I have the darndest old demonic dream that ever was. Now, these things will get in your dreams. And let me tell you something, when they're fooling with you, it stays on your mind all the time. It's just, you know, it's all you think about all the time, these things. If you ever get one in your house, it'll make life miserable for you. They'll do that. They really will. You don't ever get one fool with one, get one in your house. So anyway, this went on about a year and a half, okay? And I finally, now I don't have, very rarely they fool with me anymore. And I finally got rid of them as far as in my house. And as Paul Harvey used to say in the old 70s and 80s radio station, you'll have to come out and visit us and I'll tell you the rest of the story. So anyway, that's a few tales. Lowell has had just an unbelievable hard time. He's gotten knocked down before. That picture you saw, that was 2013. December 7th, we was having our open house. He was in there by himself cleaning. I was up the information center. He come in, they done bloodied his head. And he really should have had stitches, but he didn't do it. He's out mowing the yard over there. There's a zero-turn mower across the pond. And he had one of these hats on, ball caps, and it knocked his hat off. He stops some more, gets out, looks for his hat, don't see his hat anywhere. Just back on the mower, came through. I thought maybe the wind blowed his head. Looks across the pond on the other side. He's something on fire. His hat was afire. It had burned the top of his hat out. And we've got the bill of it, even still over there, where he done burned his hat out. So it's very, very, very bizarre. Okay, very bizarre things that have happened. We have a lot of different people coming in and visiting. I warn people, don't fool with these things. They're very dangerous. They can make you sick. They can make you, they depress you. They can, you know, they're dangerous things. They're not to be messed with. Now I'm going to tell you my opinion. And again, now let me tell you something. Opinions are like hind ends. Everybody's got one. So y'all going to listen to mine now, okay? And everything I have told you is true. Matter of fact, if you come by and visit me, I've got a lot more, even on my cell phone, I've got a lot of these things that have happened, you know, that I have filmed off our security cameras. Things are very real. But now, after you do all of this, which is true, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in ghosts. I'm going to tell you why I don't believe in ghosts. And my views are biblical. And that's this. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes, the dead have no more part of anything done under the sun. I believe that when you die, it's one of two places. You have a spirit, and it will go one of two places. I believe that. But the Bible also says this. It says 1/3 of the stars of heaven, this is in Revelation, or angels, were cast down to Satan. I believe they're demons. They are, I believe, and I've been there 18 years, I believe they're highly intelligent. If you watch some of these ghost hunter shows and different things, you'll see these young women, 18, 20 years old, or, you know, whatever, young-looking women, they'll come in there and they'll say, you know, we're not here to hurt you, and that is these things laugh at that, because believe you me, they're not thinking of any of these people hurting them. That's a joke to them. And another thing is this, if my theory is right, and they are fallen angels, they've been for thousands of years. So how intelligent is somebody going to be who's been around for thousands of years? Let's say if you were 60 years old and you're going to live to be 1,000 years old, and you are a doctor at 60, you know, and then you say, well, I'm tired of being a doctor, I believe I'm going to be an engineer. And then by the time you're 700, 800 years old, what all would you know? And these things are highly intelligent. And that's my belief, and they are very dangerous. I believe that. And they can hurt you, and they can make you sick. We fight not against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness, principalities, and powers, the Bible says. And that's my belief. And so, and just about every one of these people on these ghost hunter shows, you can rest assured of one thing. They're probably having trouble with depression. Because, you know, because fooling with something like that, you're playing, in my opinion, with dynamite. Any questions you have, and I'm going to fold her up, and the lady told me I had to 7:20, but I'm going to give you a break and get you out of here early. Any questions you have? Yes?
I was planning to go picnic. I'm scared to go now.
You know, rarely does it fool with people that we give tours to, but it does. And Shelby carried a young girl in this summer, and I noticed her. I was out in the garden. She come running out in the garden. And I thought, wonder why she ain't in there with the rest of them. And come to find out, Shelby told me the things grabbed her dress and pulled it down. So, yeah, and so they do mess with it. Harold Carmen, anybody know Harold Carmen? Real estate man, Carmen real estate people, okay? I was giving them a tour, ended up in the nursery, and anyway, we was having a hayride for he's also a preacher. He's having a hayride, and his phone rang. His evangelist supposed to preach at the hayride that night. And he told Harold, he said, I'm feeling real sick. He said, I don't believe I'm going to be able to make it tonight. Harold had his phone up. His wife was there and 2 children on the other side. And he said, well, brother, said, we just pray for you right now. The Lord make you well. When he started praying, the wind in that nursery got to shaking. There was just a shaking and a knocking. And so Harold says, and his voice quivered. So when Harold got through, he said, you may think my voice quivered because I was emotional during that time of prayer. He says, not the case. He says, something grabbed me right here in the throat. Harold Carmen, he'll tell you that. Carmen Real Estate, ask him. He'll tell you that. So those are some other things that have happened. But they have messed with people that come in. Not rarely. It's rarely they'll do that. But any other questions?
What's your opinion about why it chooses some places over others?
I'm going to tell you, with Cragfont, even with this book that you'll read, and a Satterwhite family wrote this, and they were 1830. So they lived 1890 to 1930 is what they lived there, and she has some experiences with these things that she documented. In the book, they had one of the mammies there, the slave, one of the head, the housekeeper, okay? One of the children got sick, and she said, I got a poultice for that baby, make that baby better. And practice old voodoo type witchcraft. And I think gives ground to these things. Jesus says this, says when the demon is cast out, he seeks a dry place. The whole house is dry, okay? In other words, I believe through the years that witchcraft or different things have been practiced and these things are full of them. We're not dealing with a few, we're dealing with a bunch. During this War of 1812 thing last year, these people wanted to dance in period costumes in our ballroom, just like General Winchester did back in his day. I've got a security camera up there. Now, I never have put much stock in these orbs. They take these orbs float around. I never have put a lot of stock in that. But I was sitting up and watching the security camera, and these people started dancing. And I never seen like these little balls of light picked up on that security camera. I mean, there are hundreds of them. Carlene was up there with me. And those things were floating all around and going on around these people. And I told Carlene that I hope those orbs are not those things, because it is. We ain't got a few. We got a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them, wasn't it, Carlene? So,
David Wright said that's what they were.
Huh?
I said, David Wright, you know, he was up there with us, and David said, oh, those are the orbs flying around.
Any other questions?
Why do you think they left you alone, started leaving you alone?
That's because of the rest of the story.
You gotta come out.
I'll tell you that, what happened on that, yeah. So y'all have to come out and visit with me out there. You can get a tour, and I say, hey, I want to hear the rest of the story, and I tell you about it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
What was Ann, how does she react to all this?
You know, one thing, Ann has hearing aids and she can't hear. So, but I'll tell you something right funny. At the time, I was a lieutenant at the Capitol. They transferred me. I got promoted. I was at the state capitol in those days or whatever. And the phone rang. It's my wife, Ann. And she said, well, she said it didn't work. I said, what didn't work? She said, you tried to scare me last night. I said, what do you mean? I had gone to bed. I was laying up in bed, and she was in the little den, our little den folding clothes. Said, you come to the edge of the den. He said, you going to stay up all night? And she said, no, I'm still folding clothes. He said, I turned and looked and said, you didn't even run and jump back in bed, act like you sleep. I said, honey, I said, that wasn't me. I said, I wasn't asleep. And I'll tell you another thing right funny. My daughter Tara is assistant district attorney here in Sumner County. And she was 18 years old, and she's dating a little old boy, and we lived out the cabin. And they'd walk around down the pond, So she hears this woman hollering, Tara, Tara, Tara. So she busts in our bedroom, and she says, what do you want, Mom? And Ann says, what do you mean what I want? Said, I'm in bed asleep. So, well, Mom, you've been out there hollering for me. And Ann said, no, I ain't been out there. Of course, the boyfriend heard this woman out there hollering for Tara, too. So, anyway, about a week later, Tara's up at the cabin. Me and Ann's going into town, and the boyfriend drives up out front. He throws out his hand, flags us down. He said, where y'all going? I said, we're going into town. He said, what's up? He said, I wish you wouldn't leave. And I thought, this ain't made, these boys might not be all so bad now. If my 18-year-old daughter or 21-year-old boy don't want to be left alone. Any other questions?
Is there activity in the cemetery?
You know, since I've been there, there's been almost no activity. I haven't picked up anything in the cemetery. So everybody thinks, you know, cemetery, yeah.
You know, I worked with Mr. Durham on the book about Winchester and Cragfont, and one of my jobs was to copy from the tombstones at the cemetery. You know, everything we could make out, I could make out. I went out there by myself, but nothing happened. I didn't see anything or anything. But later on, I've heard there's been all kinds of activity out there, but I didn't see or feel anything.
Since I've been here, I've never experienced anything there. I tell you something right funny too. My aunt worked at Cracker Barrel, and so the benefits department decided they was going to have a big picnic, and everybody's going to come out to Cragfont, and we lined it all up, lined it up. So the head boss there at Cragfont, they get into batteries, what they do. She tried to crank her car, battery was dead. So she called her husband out there, and he's going to jump it off, and he couldn't get his hood open. So coincidence maybe. Anyway, so anyway, got ready to leave, and they left and called me back. There was two women They looked over in the window and they see a man in a Confederate uniform, but both women saw it peeping out the window. So they called me back up after they got back to the Cragfont and said, did y'all dress up like a Confederate soldier and stand in front of that window? I said, no, we didn't pull no deal like that, you know. And then one of the women that night had a dream. And she dreamed that she saw this soldier, this is her tale. And he said to her, "You saw me, didn't you?" And she says, she got to yelling in bed, and he said, I did, I saw you. And woke her husband up. He said, "What's wrong with you?" Cracker Barrel tale. So there's been numerous experiences with a lot of different people. Yes.
Was it just a made-up story, or did Johnny Cash or Conway Twitty ever have an experience?
Conway Twitty has had several experiences out there, and Shelton Hatcher. Anybody remember Shelton Hatcher? Used to be judge. Shelton wore a toupee. So he went in there and he grabbed his toupee and scooted it down his head. He wouldn't go back in there anymore, so it wound him up. So, any other questions you have for me before I wind it up here? Anything else? What I've told you is true, and again, I've got even on my cell phone, Shelby, one of the last things they did, she walked, I've got that on film too. She walks by, going out the door, camera picks it up, then she walks back in, and just as soon as she walks back in, it drops a picture down for her benefit. And I've got that on film where it dropped that down. And then I've got where we keep the old bookcase upstairs, nobody's in the house, and again, the old bookcase, it opens by itself. One last tale, and this is going to wind us up.
Tell the story about the baby powder and the children's footprints coming.
Now that was Lowell's deal.
You don't tell his story.
No, he did that when he put in baby powder and then had the footprints running down there. But anyway, me and the wife said we were going to take a trip over to England. We were going to ride the Queen Mary back. We left on a Monday. Tuesday, Lowell opens it up. The impressions in the bed, was had impressions on the bed. In the bed, and taken out of this secretary or whatever, was the history of England. And it's an old book. It's written in the 1800s, 1800, real old book. But it was opened on the bed, the history of England. And Lowell found it, called and told me, he said, "Guess what I found?" So evidently them things keeping up with my vacation. Any other thoughts? Interesting place. I hope y'all have enjoyed it. Come out and visit with us. You may get an experience, you may not. Some do, some don't. But it's like this, and you can rest assured of this. Now, this is going to happen. It does not matter whether you're an atheist, whether you believe in God, or you believe in any of this. It doesn't matter. But if I moved out, whenever I do they run me off one of the two, then rest assured, whoever moves in that cabin will know what I know. Because whoever that is will be like a new toy. And those things that want to play. Hope y'all enjoy. Come visit.